All right, this is section 3.4, later peoples of the Fertile Crescent. We're going to talk about a lot of different groups of people that took control of the Fertile Crescent. The big idea is that after the Sumerians, many cultures ruled parts of the Fertile Crescent. The main ideas are the Babylonians conquered Mesopotamia and created a code of law, and that was Hammurabi, as some of you already know. Invasions of Mesopotamia changed the region's culture. And the Phoenicians built a trading society in the eastern Mediterranean region, and that's what we watched a video on Friday. Main idea one, the Babylonians conquered Mesopotamia and created a code of law. Hammurabi was Babylon's king, as you know. During his rule, Babylon became the most important city in Mesopotamia. Hammurabi's code was a set of 282 laws he created that dealt with almost every part of daily life. Hammurabi was Babylon's king and the city's greatest monarch. A monarch is a ruler of a kingdom or empire. He was a brilliant war leader who brought all of Mesopotamia into his Babylonian empire. And he oversaw building and irrigation projects and improved the tax system. He also developed a set of laws that was written down for all to see. And again, that's important in history because it was the first set of written laws in history. His code. Hammurabi wrote down 282 laws, which contain some ideas still found in laws today. So some of today's laws are based on Hammurabi's code. Specific crimes brought specific penalties. Social class was taken into account. If it was a greater crime to injure a rich man than a poor one. It was unique not only because of how thorough it was, but also because he wrote it down for all to see. Again, and that's why it's so important in history. And here's a quick look at some of Hammurabi's codes. So 196, if a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out. If he breaks another man's bone, his bone shall be broken. And then if we go down, if a physician heal the broken bone or diseased soft part of a man, the patient shall pay the physician 5 shekels in money. So you can see the laws had all kinds of laws that dealt with all kinds of daily activities. Main idea 2 is the invasions of Mesopotamia changed the region's culture. Armies battled for control of fertile land. There was constant battling going on in this region. Different peoples ruled Mesopotamia. You had the Hittites, the Kassites, the Assyrians, and the Chaldeans. And obviously, each group affected the culture of the region. Each new group that takes over or controls Mesopotamia, they're going to have their own customs and beliefs and ideas and ways of life. So that's obviously going to change a little bit of the culture of the region. The Hittites and Kassites. The Hittites were the first to master ironworking, so they made the strongest weapons of the time. They used the chariot, a wheeled horse-drawn cart, which allowed them to move quickly around the battlefield. They were eventually taken over by the Kassites after their king was assassinated. And the Kassites ruled for almost 400 years. So we're not talking, a 10-year span here. We're talking 400 years. And when you put things into perspective, the United States as a country has only been here for about 250 years. The Assyrians. The Assyrians had a strong army that used chariots and iron weapons. They spread terror before battles by looting villages and burning crops. Assyrian kings ruled their empire through local leaders who each governed a small area. So the king would have leaders in each of the governed areas, not too different from the way the United States is set up, right? We have a president, but then we have governors who are in control of each state. So the Assyrian kings had a similar system where they had local leaders who governed each area. And those local leaders demanded heavy taxes, so the people had to pay them taxes. And here you see the two empires that we were just talking about. The Babylonian Empire is the yellow on the map. Okay, so you can see it was a pretty large area, and it was in the Fertile Crescent in Mesopotamia between the two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. But then you see the Assyrian Empire, and the Assyrian Empire was even larger, and it extended all the way into Egypt. And here's just a carving, and it says the Assyrian army. The Assyrian army was the most powerful fighting force the world had ever seen. It was large and well organized, and it featured iron weapons, war chariots, and giant war machines used to knock down city walls. Remember, city-states had walls around them, so if they wanted to attack a city-state, they needed to break through those walls, so they would use giant war machines that knock down those walls to enter. The Chaldeans. The Assyrians had a strong army that used chariots and iron weapons. The Chaldeans attacked the Assyrians when they were weak and destroyed their empire. Nebuchadnezzar, who some of you read about, rebuilt Babylon into a beautiful city that had the famous Hanging Gardens, which is also one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. They admired the Sumerian culture, studied their language, and built temples to Sumerian gods. And Babylon became a center for astronomy. Main idea 3, the Phoenicians built a trading society in the eastern Mediterranean region, and this is what we watched on the video, the Phoenicians, and the expansion of trade. They sailed ships around the Mediterranean Sea. They founded several new colonies along the trade routes. We saw those colonies on the video as well, and they became very wealthy. Their resources, they had the prized cedar trees for timber, so they could use as wood. They accessed the sea for trade, and they built those great harbors, again, that we saw on the video the other day. The Phoenician alphabet recorded their activities. They made writing much easier for everyone. It was much easier than, let's say, cuneiform that we talked about with the Sumerians. And the Phoenician alphabet is the basis for the English language today. And here you see a port in Phoenicia, and you see their ships that they built with the cedar wood and timber. The Phoenicians sailed throughout the Mediterranean, building trade networks and founding new cities. And here you see a map of the Mediterranean. Phoenicia is this small area right here on the coast of the Mediterranean. And then these red dots are these Phoenician colonies that they built. And yellow is the area of Phoenician settlement. And these are their trade routes. These are all the places they went. And if I go back, you can see it here too. Here's the Strait of Gibraltar. And that's what they called the Pillar of Hercules. And they sailed out from there and went down the coast of Africa for gold, and even up to what today is England. So they controlled the Mediterranean, and they were from the eastern part of the Mediterranean, right? And that's the end of 3.4. And now you're going to complete the questions for this section.